Well, hello everyone. Happy Thursday to you. Welcome to this another episode of Church Facility Management Solutions in our webinar series. Today we are focusing on Energy Star for congregations. So we are glad that you are here. Thank you for attending, taking time out of your day. We really appreciate it. My name is Nathan Parr, I'm a facility specialist with Cool Solutions Group. Happy to be with you here today. And some of the things to get out of the way as we go along, and as you're hearing the presentation, we do have a copy of the presentation available for you to download from the handouts there that you see on your control panel. In addition, if you have questions as we're going along, there is a question pane there, so you can submit your questions, type them out, and we will work them in and get them answered for you as we go. So again, look forward to hearing some great information, sharing our time with you. Our special guest today is Mr. Jerry Lawson, who is with Energy Star for Congregations and Small Business and subject matter expert on this. So Jerry, we are so thankful to have you with us today. So if you would tell us a little bit about yourself and tell us about Energy Star and how it can work for us.
Thank you, Nathan. I really appreciate this opportunity, and I appreciate the work you do year-round. And members of the audience, thank you for your work with the faith community. I feel very fortunate to be working at the Environmental Protection Agency, but also fundamentally, for the most part, working with the faith community on energy efficiency, ways that you can save money to better serve your ministry and your missions. This is, of course, a voluntary program at EPA, and the idea is to prevent pollution through energy efficiency. We also, in recent years, have introduced, through a tool I'll tell you about, the ability to track your water use if you choose, also solid waste and recycling. We have a great commonality with the faith community in that EPA exists to protect human health and human life, in fact, through typically through regulation. But for more than 20 years, Energy Star has been preventing pollution in the marketplace through voluntary means with no regulation aspect to Energy Star. So we have this great overlap. It's facility and financial stewardship, which in turn helps us at EPA protect natural resources and human health. I know virtually every faith community teaches stewardship, not wasting, and certainly has a concern about human health. I'll say a word about Energy Star certification. Houses of worship can earn certification, and this means that the house of worship is typically saving 35% over the typical U.S. worship facility baseline. And when you benchmark, and I'll explain that in a moment, your worship facility in Portfolio Manager, our free online tool, it will be scored on a 1 to 100 scale compared to all other U.S. Worship facilities' energy use. And 75 or higher is eligible for certification, and we require for the integrity of certification that a registered architect or professional engineer verify the data. However, we take it upon ourselves to find free verification services for our partner congregations. The recognition here is pretty important. As an Energy Star partner or participating in Portfolio Manager, 90% of the congregants in your congregation are probably going to recognize this blue and white logo on the lower left simply as consumers from Lowe's, Home Depot, Best Buy, Walmart, Office Depot, Staples, you name it. We have dozens and dozens and dozens of consumer and business products that use the logo. Another measure of just the credibility, on the left of this bar chart, you'll see the venerable Good Housekeeping seal. We were very excited when we matched their brand trust some years ago. The image you see here on the right is one that we've developed over several years, learning in some sense the best practices of Energy Star partners. And these are all the way from Fortune 500 companies to small businesses and congregations of all sizes. So what we promote, and this is, as a voluntary program, it's your choice how you proceed, but we really promote the idea of making a commitment through joining Energy Star as a partner. You do not have to join Energy Star to use our tools and training and tech support, but you're a little more plugged in to the information flow if you partner with us. Assessing performance and setting goals is something you do within the Portfolio Manager tool. We have an action workbook for congregations that helps you with creating an action plan and implementation. And evaluating your progress is, again, back to the Portfolio Manager tool. You're going to hopefully be tracking your monthly energy and even water bills. And then finally, recognizing achievements. We have learned that it's just so important. We know that corporations and school districts and churches use recognition to reward success and to recognize the hard work that people do. So we think that's important. I should have updated this number. There's something over 400,000 congregations in the U.S. today. I was looking that up. So it certainly continues to be a growth sector. And let's just go with this estimate with a 20% energy savings, which is definitely possible in almost all cases. That's about $630 million. But what we have typically found, the bottom line here of the slide being that more typically 30% savings are available. So there's about $1 billion out there that the faith community can recapture to put back into the ministry. So again, here's some of the big picture reasons to pay a lot of attention to efficiency, and by being here today tells me that you do. So repurposing the savings into things better than paying a utility bill. For some of your equipment, particularly HVAC and refrigeration, you're going to extend the useful lifespan of the equipment and other aspects of your facility. And talking about the asset value of a house of worship, you don't often think of it because, not that often does a worship facility turn over in the market or be sold. But if you're looking at borrowing money or remodeling, and the asset value of the facility does become a positive issue then. And energy efficiency has been documented repeatedly to improve asset value. It's also on a less, pragmatic side there on the facility side, engaging your youth group. We know from all kinds of surveys that young people in high school, college are interested in the environment. It's just something that is always there with younger folks. And working with Energy Star, there's just a lot of ways that the youth group can be engaged. I mean, sometimes a youth group or a couple of youth can take over benchmarking your facility with your utility bills and some key data and maintaining the account, or at least, supporting. A lot of skills like caulking, weather stripping can be taught to a youth group. I know in my church, our youth group learns skills like this and goes out into the community, working in low-income homes to do energy efficiency upgrades. So also, just the overall comfort, functionality, and appearance of your workspace can be improved with efficient lighting and all the ways that you're controlling your conditioned space. Your capital campaign gains a new level of credibility when you're able to point to the stewardship of the money you've already been given, that you are practicing what you preach on stewardship and efficiency. And we provide a lot of ways that you can easily document and generate charts and graphs and show your members and your decision makers what you're doing to be efficient with the operating funds you have. This also is a lesson people can take home. Many times when a congregation joins Energy Star, one of the first questions I get is, what can we do for our members? And we actually have a lot of parallel tools and training and information for homeowners or residents, really, and even in tenants situations. So that's something that by maybe a good stewardship example in a house of worship, you can help people save money at home, and they in turn may have a little more to provide to the congregation in terms of finances. The credit worthiness of the congregation, I think, is akin to the asset value I mentioned. And then on a serious and a moral side based in your faith tradition is conserving natural resources, conserving creation, caring for creation and the natural resources we've been blessed with so that they are there for future generations. And then finally, we're preventing pollution when we reduce waste. It's not just the pollution related to energy generation and consumption, but water itself has a very high element of energy involved in its treatment and pumping and use, even non-heated. So here's the homepage for congregations at energystar.gov/congregations. And there, circled in red, you'll see the action workbook download. And there's a bit of an update to this slide indicating that the action workbook is also available in Spanish as well as English. And when you download, you'll want to look at both the action workbook and the workbook appendices. They each print out to about 40 pages each, but we didn't want to have one monster file, so we've got two manageable files that are easy to download. And I should maybe be explicit. Everything you hear from Energy Star here is free, or I might more accurately say you've already paid. At EPA, we're a taxpayer-supported program, so everything here is for you, again, whether you join or not. But we encourage your congregation to join at energystar.gov/join buildings, as you'll see at the top of the page. I'll just invite you to visit this page and look around and see some other features. So here's an outline. Take a quick look at the workbook. It's really a step-by-step guide, how-to on managing energy and water. It includes worksheets and checklists, information on equipment and finance and working with contractors. And it's all written in lay language. We have a lot of facility managers using it, but people who are non-technical can gain quite a lot from it as well. So it's going to walk you through these 7 steps of energy management that I illustrated earlier, talking about making the commitment and assessing and tracking performance, setting goals, and recognizing the achievements. So again, making the commitment, important to be working with clergy and especially staff. Maybe some of you are facility managers or business administrators. Energy Star recognizes your important role. We also recognize that in a given congregation, you may have a green team or you may have members who have a real interest in energy efficiency or in preventing pollution. So we stress to them how important it is to respect and work with staff, clergy, your governing board on this. And by all means, when we talk about typically a lot of savings still being available no matter what you've done, it's no disrespect to previous efforts. In fact, the portfolio manager tool I'll show you is a way you can actually capture the actual the savings and the pollution prevention that you achieved maybe a couple of years ago by backdating your benchmarking. The URL at the bottom of the page, energystar.gov/benchmark, gives you a good overview of what we call benchmarking. It's creating a baseline for a given 12-month period. And I will generally just refer to energy, but you can track water if interested. But you want a baseline. You got to know where you start to really know where you want to go and if you're getting there. And we're very fond of saying you can't really manage very well what you're not measuring. So, Portfolio Manager. This tool has been around quite a while, and you might see it's a little bit of a corporate or private sector sounding name, Portfolio Manager. It was created before we were working with congregations, and often a partner would have multiple properties, therefore a portfolio of properties. And of course, these days there are plenty of congregations have multiple sites, but portfolio managers is just even easier if you have one location. It helps you assess your consumption, and say what's really different. You might be thinking, well, I'm watching my utility bills. I know my consumption. I'm keeping up with cost. I see it went up or down. But look down page here. Energy consumption within Portfolio Manager is weather normalized, meaning that there's this very sophisticated calculation going on in the background, and it's factoring out extreme weather. We've had churches, I'm here working in the Washington, D.C. area, we've had churches that did massive LED upgrades. And a couple of months later, they didn't feel they were really seeing the savings they anticipated. Once they benchmarked in Portfolio Manager and it separated out the extreme weather that was driving heating or even cooling costs, depending on when they did the upgrade, they saw the actual savings were there. So that's a really powerful feature of Portfolio Manager that you cannot do on your own. Likewise, it is calculating your greenhouse gas emissions. It's calculating the pollution you're preventing. So when you start benchmarking and have a baseline, you'll see the amount of pollution that your congregation is responsible for. It's a threat to human health. And as you go forward, you'll see the calculation of the pollution prevention. Here's kind of the same slope on a growth scale, in which we have over 500,000 buildings in the U.S. are benchmarked in Portfolio Manager. Of that, about 2,000 are congregations. Now it's about 35,000 buildings have achieved Energy Star certification, and that's we have about 112 houses of worship that are certified. And this is, something we really understand is that houses of worship are so often dependent on volunteers or are understaffed. One statistic I won't show you, but one that I'm well aware of is that on a per square foot basis, there is less personnel in the worship facility than almost any other type of commercial building. So that's another reason, we know that it's just harder for congregations to do all this that we're talking about. This is a screenshot of Portfolio Manager. Under the title Portfolio Manager, you'll see some tabs, My Portfolio, Sharing, Planning, Reporting, Recognition. Down here, you'll see links to definitions, how to learn more about Portfolio Manager, where you'll go here, you can download 10 or a dozen fact sheets in plain English that are steps 1, 2, 3, 4. Here's how you enter utility data. Here's how you share with a coworker or someone on your committee or your team. You can click right through and register for a live training. We have several live trainings a month. Also, every live training is recorded. You can go find a recording because often, when we do these live trainings midday during the week, you may not be able to go there. So we have just a lot of information available. We have some training on YouTube and just a lot of ways to help you out. Once you're in Portfolio Manager as well, you can at any time ask a question. This will take you to a little form. You can type a question. Believe it or not, we answer usually within 2 hours. Our help desk has better than a 90% satisfaction rating from actual users. And I'll also mention that our FAQs, or or frequently asked questions are literally frequently asked questions. They're not ones that we have made up to educate. They're ones that really happen. This is the URL address for the building's training page. There was a link to it on the previous slide, but clicking on it, you'll go here. This is where you can find a series of PDFs that you can download if you choose and print on a lot of different ways to work with Portfolio Manager. There's a quick start guide, like I said, a 1, 2, 3, 4, how to do this, how to enter utility data, sharing data with a colleague. You'll probably want one person who's the account holder. That account holder could be the person who enters data. They may have a coworker or a friend or someone else on the team who can enter the data. If you got more than one person involved, you'll need to create a sharing situation here in which the account holder will grant access on some basis. You can grant read-only to other people or share the ability to enter data. While in Portfolio Manager, once you have a benchmark, a baseline of 12 months or better, you'll be able to generate standard and custom reports. And these are, colorful charts and graphs that can illustrate what you're doing and achieving to members of your congregation and your decision makers. Ultimately, if you can get to a 75 or higher, it's within Portfolio Manager that you actually do the application. Again, on this page, you can register for live webinars, see the recorded webinars, and there are dozens and dozens. You can see videos, download a slide set, see the FAQs, ask a question, and you can also sign up for a monthly e-newsletter. Navigation is really pretty easy. We've made this very user-friendly, and it gets good reviews. There are helpful tools like mouse over pop-up definitions when you're looking around. There are tips that pop up throughout. There are data entry wizards that walk you through step-by-step process. There are templates for spreadsheet import. All of you probably have a spreadsheet already on your congregation, and we can talk to your spreadsheet and make it easy to transfer data. Sometimes we get a 0 or a decimal point in the wrong place, so we have alert messages that pop up if Portfolio Manager thinks something doesn't match up. If looks like you put in megawatts instead of kilowatts. So you can search for other users. You may, within your city, your town, you may have a ministerial alliance. You may want to work with colleagues or friends there. Maybe within a denomination, if you choose, you could work nationally within your denomination or with anyone else who has a Portfolio Manager account. You can compare notes and communicate and kind of use it as you see fit. It's kind of a social media network. Here are some samples of what reports look like. This is just a standard report. This on the top says a source EUI report. That's energy utilization intensity. That's basically energy use per square foot. And that lines up with the Energy Star score, the 1 to 100 score. But anyway, suffice to say, once you have data, you've got report making handled. It's just right here, very easy to do. So within Portfolio Manager, you can set goals. If you want to set a 10% or 20% or any goal, you can set that, and it will help tell you and track how you're doing. Within the action workbook, we have what we call Sure Energy Savers, really Sure Savers these days because it includes water. And they're broken largely into lighting, HVAC, the building envelope, office equipment, kitchen and food service equipment, and water. And with each of those, we have a whole section on each. For example, under lighting, this is just a sample where we talk about things you can do. I mean, this is things you're already doing. You're already putting in LEDs. You're helping people know to turn the lights off when not in use. That's not always done. That's where inexpensive sensors and controls for occupancy and vacancy come in. It's really amazing the savings that automating some of this can achieve. In HVAC, there's again the controls. The second bullet here, programmable thermostats. Maybe a lot of you already have those, but tuning them up once a year is important. Checking the accuracy because thermostats can get out of whack. In the HVAC system, just cleaning and changing filters monthly during high use in the winter and summer is very important, and keeping the coils cleaned. And we recommend an annual contract with a maintenance agreement because that ensures it gets done. Have your HVAC contractor come in and do a complete tune-up and be sure everything's calibrated and working well. Here are a lot of things going on in the envelope. That's what's keeping the weather out and the conditioned air inside. In big buildings, there can be all kinds of leaks. Heat gain is often an issue on your east and especially your west windows. We have quite a lot of detail here. Office equipment. This is where Energy Star labeling comes in. There are dozens of Energy Star labeled pieces of office equipment: computers, printers, faxes, copiers, telephone information, etc. Kitchen and food service equipment. We have probably a dozen types of commercial food service equipment, all kinds of heating and cooling equipment that virtually every kitchen is going to have. Saving water, hot and cold, is important, and our sister program here is WaterSense. They've worked with us to make Portfolio Manager so it can track water, and they have a lot of tools. They also label water using equipment. So all this can add up to a multi-point action plan. You also need a communications plan, not to overcomplicate things, but you need to be sure that the people who are paying the bills know what you're doing to save money, and understanding projects and understanding what's being achieved. It's important, it's the old who, what, when, where of, being very specific about who's responsible for what aspects of a given project, and, what schedule these things are being done on, and, what your pre-project use was and what your estimated savings are, and, are you on track? Are you going to get your return on investment? And more on evaluation. And again, along the way, Portfolio Manager will be tracking not just your energy and water and dollars, but your emissions, not just carbon, but nitrogen oxides, sulfur dioxides, and other emissions harmful to human health. So the fun part, but yet an important part, is recognizing achievements. Being sure that the people who have made things happen and help achieve the savings are being recognized, even in a service. Maybe there's a certificate. Maybe it's dinner or breakfast with the pastor. Just be sure people are being recognized. And this goes for the day in, day out work, of course, of facility manager and business administrator, who are a big part of this. We have, of course, national recognition. That's, as I said, the certification process for 75 and higher. We also work with new construction. We have an architect on staff who, if you're looking at new construction or a major remodel, your architect can talk to our architect, and we have a companion tool to Portfolio Manager called Designed to Earn the Energy Star, so that literally a congregation or church having been built really on the first Sunday can be Energy Star even without a history, because it has been designed to certain specifications. This is just a kind of a reminder of the cost-free verification. We have some discussion of that. The idea is if you're eligible to achieve Energy Star, we want you to be able to do it without paying the cost of an architect or engineer. At this page, we have a search tool where you can enter your zip code, and it will help find licensed professionals who are Energy Star partners, and it will tell you whether they have done any worship facility verifications for certification or not. But it will show those who are doing the pro bono or free verifications. And we've had many times where someone hasn't done a worship facility yet, but when asked, they're happy to do so. I mean, it's good public recognition for the architects and engineers to help in the community. We introduced in September something called the Treasure Hunt. It's a page where we use the idea of a treasure hunt as a way to get more savings. This was created in the private sector by Fortune 500 companies where their architects and engineers had done a really, really good job and had a lot of savings, but they wanted to find more. So what they did was enlist the non-technical people in their organizations to help look for more savings. So we have on the lower left here treasure maps, and it doesn't show here, but there is a worship facility treasure map. It prints out to about 3 pages, and it's 3 pages of bullets that are just reminders and ideas and things you can do to save money. This is the competitions guide. It's a 20-page document you can download. We learned from our partners that friendly competitions within a congregation or with congregations across town or nationally within the denomination, competitions can energize savings. It's a good way to have fun, to really sort of accelerate the savings, and it provides the metrics for recognition and awards and prizes. We offer online some toolkits for competitors. These are samples of posters and web content, things you can print, handouts for your congregation, social media graphics. You can customize them. There are typically spots in here where you can type in, the information about your house of worship. So I'm going to close with a couple of slides here. This again, and you will have these available, thanks to Nathan. You can join at Join Buildings. You'll need to, get your decision makers to back you up on that. It's a very simple and no cost or obligation, just a handshake, but we need to know who you are. You can go to Buildings Help to send questions. Again, you don't have to be a partner to send us questions. Then the Building Trainings page, and then the home page again for congregations. I'll start taking questions in a minute, but just leave my contact information. Again, I'm Jerry Lawson. I manage Energy Star congregations. I welcome to hear from you. My email is probably the best way to contact because I see it more often than I'm at the desk by the phone. Our architect is Karen Butler, and if you're looking at new construction or major remodel, let Karen know. And that's my presentation. I'm going to turn it back to Nathan, or be happy to take questions.
All right. Jerry, thank you very much. Appreciate all of this information. And we are open. If you have some questions specific to Jerry that you'd like some more detail on an aspect, please go ahead, start sending those in, type those out. We'll get to them. If for some reason we don't get to your question or you can't type, or you can always email us at cfms@coolsolutionsgroup.com so we can take those questions later and get you an answer. I just wanted to point out as we're sitting here, and for the folks in the audience, many of you have been on our webinars throughout this year, where we've talked about energy efficiency, we've talked about control systems, we've talked about preventative maintenance and life cycle. Everything that we just, as a reminder, that we just learned about at Energy Star is free. There's no excuse now. So sorry if you're attending and listening, there's no excuse to not start exploring these ways to become more energy efficient in your facility.
Nathan, more than free, they've already paid.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
don't
There you
don't
go.
leave money on the table.
That's it. You've paid for it. You've done it. It's there for you. We've made some of these resources. We've already loaded them up on our resources page. But you've got here. You've got this outline. So my question to you all and folks, again, if maybe you can shoot me an answer, is, what are you willing to do? What are you willing to try as you look through, or what scares you about going through and becoming more energy efficient or following this information? Is there? And if your answer is, oh, there's nothing, I'm good to go, then the challenge is, when are you going to start? Knowing that you should do something without actually doing it means very little. So I love it. And competitions and getting that certification, that's something that it feels good, and it does show if we're going to be stewards of people, we should also be stewards of what's been entrusted. So
Nathan, an action item I would challenge people to is to, as soon as it's convenient, go to the web page and download the action workbook and the resource appendices.
okay.
Get that downloaded, and at your convenience, start thumbing through it and scanning through it,
Okay.
and you're going to see a lot of ideas and information
Okay.
at the homepage.
Well, and I've got kind of a question for you as we talk about that, and as you've met with congregations and organizations doing this, is there something that seems to be the most difficult for folks when they first start? What is there one aspect that is harder than another, or is there something that we can kind of anticipate? Does that make sense? Just what do you people struggle with more?
I'm going to throw out inertia, just that taking that first step. That's why I suggest downloading the guide, because it's hard to look at a new piece of software. Sometimes we're all like that. We get, it's always something.
Mm-hmm.
But
Okay.
find some doable, and the action workbook is full of what we call sure savers, no cost and low cost items you can do. So there's things you can, do this weekend.
Okay. Um, so is when we talk Energy Star and when we talk about those, do you get much into solar? Do you see that being as part? And that's kind of the question that's come up.
Yes.
How
Yeah.
does solar fit into this?
That's Thank you for that, because that does come up a lot, and sometimes it comes up in which a congregation wants to do a good thing, and they look at potential savings, and it's good for creation, and they may want to jump to solar before they've done energy efficiency. So that comes up as a question and sometimes an issue, in which it's a little easier to get people to sign up for a new stained glass window than for a new floor. A lot of energy efficiency is not exciting. It is,
Sure.
it's important, like balancing your checkbook and brushing your teeth, but it's not exciting, perhaps, caulking, weather stripping, and fine tuning all of this and installing lighting. So solar is glamorous, and that is good. But the way we recommend is, first you want to be energy efficient to a pretty high degree, because when you're sizing your solar system, you're going to have to size it for your energy demand. I mean, what are you trying to do with solar? It could well be that if you put in a great new solar system, then a couple of years later start looking at efficiency, you have undercut the return on investment on the solar system. It was too big to start with, so you paid too
Mm-hmm.
much, and you may be undercutting your return on investment because you don't want to just
Sure.
run out and buy it's like likewise, if you have done a good job on energy efficiency, and inevitably your heating or air conditioning fails at some point, they last a long time, but you may be looking at a new one down the road. Uh, you don't want to necessarily come back in with the same tonnage. You don't necessarily need the same size heating air conditioning. For
Okay.
example, if you have too large an air conditioning unit, say you've come in and become very efficient, your air conditioning unit will shut off too soon. That is, it will cool down before it removes all the humidity it should. So you'll be cold but clammy. So sizing here is important, and that's where you want the foundation of what you do to be a high level of efficiency. Then you can appropriately size new HVAC or new solar. We
Okay.
do have another voluntary program here called Green Power Partnerships, and that's our solar program. I work closely with them, and I'm many years ago I did work some in solar myself, but I'm not an expert now. And there's so many options out there that if you have solar questions, I'd be happy to field them and get you an answer from an expert.
Okay. So to kind of recap, it's solar is a good option. It's something to consider, but it's more, you get more return if we do all the things to make our building, our envelope, and all of our systems that we can as energy efficient as possible, and then take advantage of the additional savings from solar
Right.
on top of
It's
that.
building on success, building on
Sure.
savings, and
Um,
even in energy efficiency, you don't want to just go out and get a brand new high efficiency HVAC system. You want to start with caulking and weather stripping,
sure.
and doing the no cost, low cost, and cleaning and changing filters, and you know,
Okay. Yeah. And keep in mind that 15 years ago, I attended a training on boilers, and where I was introduced to solar heated boilers.
uh huh,
So keep in mind that when we talk about solar, it's not just panels on the roof. There's lots of different things. But again, get the facility energy efficient. Then let's really start looking at where we can target key investments in solar improvements. Fair?
I should just throw in too here in the last very few years, the prices on solar equipment are really plummeting. So
Hmm.
I really do encourage you to, maybe have a goal of solar, but the way to get there is efficiency first.
Okay. I have a question on, as we're talking about benchmarking and Energy Star, demand charges. Um, is there information on Energy Star to help us look at and find different ways to reduce our demand charges? Versus, I mean, we're actively bringing down our usage,
Right.
um, but how do we address demand? Or is that something covered by Energy Star?
Well, we can address it. I'm not remembering how much it's specifically called out in the guide, but again, the uh, basic energy efficiency is sort of underlying the demand. Your demand being when you're peaking with heating or cooling. Uh, Everything you do for efficiency will take a little out from the bottom of your demand charge. It'll keep it down a little, but then you want to target demand in ways, for example, cycling, uh, your heating and cooling, so that if you have multiple units, they're not all running at once. You can cycle through it.
Sure.
There are, any number of strategies for dodging a higher demand charge. And those apply to water as well. Typically, your wastewater bill is a function of your water bill. So if you're saving water, you're going to reduce your wastewater bill as well.
Okay.
But there's, that's
So it,
that's a really good kind of a question to send us to, because that's when we research and we
okay.
come back with kind of a multiple bullets and ideas and links on demand
Okay.
charges.
So
And you should look too, check with your utility customer service people. A lot of utilities have programs specifically for dodging the demand charge.
Sure.
It's in their interest to manage demand, because
Right.
that's why they have to build new power plants, is to meet demand and have a safe, uh, you know, uh, standard, of excess capacity.
Right.
So they are probably going to do some things to help you manage your demand, and may have a program where they might put a radio control, say, on your air conditioning, so that for 8 minutes out of the half hour, uh, they will turn it off, and you will get a financial reward for that on your monthly bill. It's there are different ways to go about this. Some of it is cooling and coasting, and heating and coasting. Uh, and
Okay.
here again, the better your air infiltration is under control with caulking and weather stripping and insulation, etc. Uh, Again, that's what's pushing up your demand charge from the bottom.
Sure.
It's
And so again, it comes back to let's look at where our loss is, where our
Yeah,
heating and cooling loss is. If we can address that better, then as we bring in this equipment, as we update our HVAC, as we put in better controls, change our lighting, when we're coasting or when we're able to turn things off, we can, like you said, that's how we can reduce the demand. But again,
right,
it comes back to tightening up that building envelope
right.
and
And
doing that.
And Nathan, even as we speak, I'm going back to your early question of what obstacles do we see? Well, we're kind of talking about one by one. These things maybe aren't so complicated, but when you look at all the ways in a facility that energy and water are used and wasted, it can be overwhelming to people, or to professional staff. There's so much, that they've got to worry about. So that's where a workbook like this and a sheet like the treasure hunt, it helps get things to look a lot more manageable when you have it down on paper. When you have a
Sure.
spreadsheet. When you can look at it kind of all at once and get the big picture, because it can be overwhelming if you just try to
Sure.
think of everything at once.
Right. And that's part of that planning process that you referenced earlier in that cycle and that reevaluation. We know upgrading our windows to more energy efficient windows, double pane, things like that, helps our building envelope. But trying to replace all the windows in a facility at once, very
Yeah,
expensive. But if
very
we can
expensive. Right.
take it in bite-sized chunks, say, hey, we get heavy north winds, for example.
Yep. Yeah.
So let's target windows on the north side first. Let's
Precisely. Yeah.
keep our heat in there
And
and things. Okay.
maybe take some of your. We like to talk about taking your savings from no cost. Do all the no cost things you can think of,
Hmm.
and you'll see some savings. Maybe you could literally leverage that into buying, being sure you've got LED light bulbs. It's often
Okay.
the next stop. We talk about saving, leveraging the savings from no cost into low cost, and then the low savings from low cost into things that you're really looking at return on investment. Where you're
Okay.
looking at HVAC or a boiler or windows or solar, the high ticket items.
Okay. And speaking of windows, I'd like to hear your opinion, thoughts, and your experience. What about window tinting? There's a lot of people going around saying tint windows, tint your windows. Do you have much experience or see a good ROI on that?
Well, it's better than a new window. Uh, it well, sort of consumer beware of there's probably all kinds of quality of product and installation out there. So if you're looking at that, number one, you're probably only going to want to tint windows on the west side, for afternoon sun.
Hmm.
You certainly don't want to tint on the south side. That's where you're getting your winter sun. That's helpful. On the north side, you don't really get direct sun typically. On the east side, depending on what part of the country you're in, you may get enough morning sun in the summer that you would want to do some solar film on the east side. There are other options too, and this all depends on site and location. Having good deciduous trees that can block, your western and eastern sun during cooling season is really a great option. Uh, Sometimes, you got to be careful aesthetically with things like awnings, but I've
Mhm.
seen nicely done, and I don't mean roll up awnings, but they're just all kinds of tools.
Sure.
Uh, uh, Maybe fins that were positioned appropriately could let light in but block direct sun. But solar film can be a good thing to do. It's just a question of getting a good quality and get it done right, and looking for references. And these days we can check online for product and quality issues, and
Yeah. And it
so
and it still kind of comes back to solar film itself may be great, but if you're installing it on a window that is single pane,
yeah,
that needs caulked, that
yeah,
that has air,
exactly, exactly,
you're not. No, no. So it again, it goes back to, so to answer that question, window tinting, it can be useful, but
right,
is the surface substrate, is it as good as it could be, to then make sure that the ROI that we might get with reducing some of the heat gain
yeah,
is actually
yeah,
realized.
right. And there's interim options. I mean, heck, if nothing else, close the curtains. You
Sure.
know, I've seen congregations put up aluminum foil on the inside.
Yeah.
There's a lot of congregations just don't have the operating capital or the funds, yet they can do something. I was in a church here in D.C. a couple of winters ago, walking to the downstairs family room, and I saw a curtain move, and I went over and saw a hole in the window about the size of a softball. And I don't know how long it had been there or what happened, but I wasn't going to tell them to go out and get a new high efficiency window. I told them to get a piece of cardboard and duct tape.
Sure.
Uh, Likewise, another church across town, probably same time frame. It was in the winter. I was walking through part of the church, maybe an office, where they had a window unit air conditioner still in the window, and those little accordion panels on the sides that you pull out was
Hmm.
sort of flapping in the breeze. So number one, maybe, is that's a security risk, because anybody can reach in through that little panel and yank out the air conditioner, and then you've got, unless they've done something to screw in the window frame, to the window to the frame, to not let the window go up and down, but you've still probably got a security issue. But
Sure.
you shouldn't be leaving a window unit air conditioner in the window all winter long, because there's air coming through it.
Right.
So anyway, there's a lot of common sense is the issue here. So and that's kind of this little treasure hunt idea of getting maybe people who are not proficient in air conditioning or lighting or heating to walk around with their common sense and see that window curtain flapping, or see the door propped open. All these common sense things.
Okay. Um, Jerry, I appreciate it. I believe we've gotten to the questions that have been submitted and that have been asked. Does anybody else, if you've got another question or if we need to go in deep, just let us know. Send it in. But Jerry, I do appreciate the time you spent with us today. Um,
Thank you.
and
It's a pleasure.
and
Appreciate
and
it.
as a reminder, we will make the recording of this webinar available to watch again. You do have the download, and we've sent some of the links. So I encourage you to take advantage of all this free information. And remember, as Jerry said, send the question in if you want a little bit more answer or a little help with researching. We've already paid for it, so let's take advantage of it. It's something that's there, and I would imagine that it's not taken advantage of by as many people as could be or should be. Uh, with asking questions and checking it out. So I encourage everyone who's on this webinar, and as you take it back to your home churches and folks, take the time, invest a little bit of time, get this information and get going. Jerry, again, thank you very much for introducing us to Energy Star.
Thank you.
and what's available. We really appreciate it. Folks, I do not see any other questions, so I thank you for your time. Appreciate it, spending time with us this Thursday afternoon, and pray that you have a blessed rest of the day and a great weekend. And for all of us here at Cool Solutions Group, we wish you all a Merry Christmas and look forward to talking and speaking with you throughout the rest of this year and towards the new year. Thank you all very much. Have a blessed day.